Hillsborough County Jail takes every precaution to keep their deputies and inmates safe. Sometimes inmates explode with rage and violence. Deputy Garcia has witnessed it close up. She was at the jail several months earlier when a veteran officer, Deputy Moon, was attacked in the mental health pod.
Deputy Moon was a fantastic deputy. Being a veteran deputy, maintained his pod very well. The inmate definitely was in crisis. He had received some information, I believe, coming back from court, and it was time to lock down for lunch. And he took every opportunity that he could to lash out at Deputy Moon.
Deputy Moon was at the desk. He didn't see the inmate come around the side until it was too late. He was trapped in his chair.
The chair was extremely difficult to get out of. It was on wheels.
Deputy Moon was on the verge of being choked to death, according to Deputy Gray.
The inmate was behind him, was able to literally put him in a chokehold that had Deputy Moon probably in the last seconds of his life choking the life out of him. He had that kind of grip.
It was Deputy Moon's trustees actually came to his aid.
The inmates knocked the attacker and Deputy Moon to the ground and pried his arms off the officer's throat. Another inmate called for help.
Fortunately, some of these guys have been back and forth to jail a few times and had a definite good rapport with Deputy Moon.
It was Deputy Moon's commitment to the inmates that saved his life.
The other inmates were able to subdue the suspect and get him out of the pod. But if it wasn't for those 4 inmates, Deputy Moon wouldn't have been with us today. And the reason they did that was the respect that they had for him. Without that respect, they might have not ever intervened.
Deputy Moon survived the attack with minor injuries, though he retired not long after. As one of the 3 intel officers, Master Deputy Gray is responsible for preventing violence against deputies and inmates.
The biggest part of our job is the safety and security of our inmates and our deputies. And if that's stopping contraband coming in, if it's weapons, if we could save a life, that's our job.
In just the last few weeks, both weapons and drugs have been found. There are gaps in security which Gray needs to close.
Contraband and shakedowns and constant monitoring of contraband in our facility is 24/7, 365 days a year. That's something we deal with daily.
A variety of deadly homemade weapons have been confiscated from inmates.
This was found, and it looks like a normal book, but the officer was diligent enough to go through it, and what he found was it had been carved out page by page, and what it was concealing was a toothbrush fastened with 2 razor blades, one on each side. A thread was used, probably out of one of the bed sheets, and it was affixed to the toothbrush. All of a sudden, you got an easy cutting instrument for cutting a deputy or another inmate. They're very intelligent. They've got nothing but time on their hands. You know, what we do 12 hours, they do 24. It's a constant battle.
One inmate just came from state prison, where he's doing hard time for murder. 25-year-old Chadwick Thomas spent 4 years at Hillsborough Jail awaiting trial on the murder charge. He pleaded no contest and got sent to the pen for 25 years.
I spent 5.5 years waiting to go to trial and fighting and process of going to court and back to court. And I pleaded guilty of no contest and accepted a plea of 25 years.
In state prison, Thomas met guys who would never see freedom again.
Going to prison, your first thoughts is how you can get out. The best way, how you can find your way to get yourself out of it. Because everybody, it's some people with 3 and 4 life sentences there that ain't never leaving. And I got 25 years, I got a day, but it's a long day, but I got a day. There's some people that don't have days. So I thank God I got a day.
Once inside, Thomas realized 25 years in the pen is a long time. He's come back to appeal his conviction.
This ain't what it is. I'm too young for to be locked up all my life.
Thomas is glad to be away from state prison for a few weeks.
You know, you at a place where it's people who really did their crime or really killed somebody. So you're not always comfortable. You're comfortable at a certain extent. All right, I'm all right, but I know that I'm in a place where it's like what they say, vultures. You know what I'm saying? You're surrounded by vultures, scavengers.
Unlike his earlier time at Hillsboro, Thomas will be locked down by himself all day, every day, except for 3 hours a week, since now he's a convicted murderer.
Chad was in isolation. He's here for first-degree murder. Obviously, if we're not careful with him and he doesn't think things are going to go well in court for him and he sees the opportunity to escape, then he can do that. But he won't do it on our watch.
It's not what Thomas expected. For her own safety and theirs, Deputy Garcia tries to stay attuned to the shifting moods of the prisoners. One of her inmates, Amber Tackett, has gotten some bad news. Tackett, a drug user convicted of trafficking, has done 8 months at Hillsboro. She just completed a mandatory 3-month drug program.
Because the charges were drug-related, they ordered me to take a substance abuse program, which is a 3-month program here. It's very effective. It's scary, but I've got a plan, thank God for that, so I'm gonna try everything that I can to stay out of here. That was the last thing I expected to hear.
She's ready to go home and turn her life around. But there's a problem. She's wanted in Tennessee for violation of probation. She was hoping that her time at Hillsboro would count.
I'd have 8 months in here, and then I think I had a couple months in up there, so I was hoping maybe that time would be credited, but I was facing going to prison for a number of years on the violation in Tennessee, so I didn't know what was going on. I was just hoping for the best.
Now, Tackett may be looking at years in state prison.
We found out that there was a hold for Tennessee. So her class graduated, her class got to go home, they got to be released, and she stayed.
It sucks getting to watch everybody else walk out the door and knowing. And then today I was just like wondering, I didn't know how long I was gonna have to sit here, how long I'd be waiting for them to come and get me.
Tackett has turned to Deputy Garcia to help her find out what's going on.
She asked me the day if I would call inmate records and see how things were going.
She was just supposed to call me and review the information in the file so that I could pass on the information to the inmate.
Some information as to how long extradition takes and if they had heard from Tennessee.
Yes. Thank you.
Very soon,
All right.
Tackett will know if she's going to prison in Tennessee and for how long. At Hillsboro, Central Booking is the front line in the fight against disruptive and violent inmates. Intake is the main source for drugs and weapons that later surface in the jail. Sergeant Onan and her team carefully search every inmate, then book them whether they like it or not.
Where you going? Where you going? Listen to me. You walk straight ahead to where those chairs are at. Stop the attitude here and now. You just have to be open to experiencing something new every night. It's never the same thing. Just keep on your toes and be vigilant, and always expect something to go bad so that you're prepared. You're gonna hurt yourself. Don't keep doing that. You're gonna hurt yourself. If they're under the influence of drugs and alcohol, I have seen them kick the glass out of the holding cells. Is that open? Yes.
Tonight, police bring in a seriously angry inmate who's been busted on an assault charge. She is out of control start. Onan and her officers move her into a holding cell and take her to the floor. Sergeant Onan removes her jewelry and any other potentially harmful items.
You know what? Stop, sir. Do not pull away from me. Do not pull away from me. I said, ask you to stop. Come on back. I just want your hand there until we get out of the cell. I just want to get all of your hand there.
Onan quietly points her taser, just in case. Its red dot is visible on the inmate's shirt. The inmate will be processed once she sobers up.
Another happy customer.
Sergeant Onan is just glad a violent confrontation was avoided. One inmate at Hillsboro is so unhappy that he's turned the violence against himself. Inmate Chadwick Thomas is at Hillsboro to appeal a 25-year sentence for murder. But he didn't expect to be locked down and in isolation the whole time. In fact, Thomas hates to be in solitary confinement.
In confinement, you see I'm locked up 23 hours a day. In prison, it's open. I can be going to and from the rec yard to the canteen. It's better than being locked up in a room all day.
It got so bad that Thomas tried to hang himself the night before.
I told him I wanted to kill myself because I didn't like it. I didn't get a shower, no rec, anything, so I stood in the room like 3 days. I've been asking for toothbrush, toothpaste, soap. I couldn't get none of that. It just, I couldn't take it no more. I couldn't do my time like that. I got a sheet hung from the sprinkler in the room. And stood on the sink and waited till the deputy came.
Thomas was put on a 24-hour suicide watch in a separate unit.
Just a deputy sits in front of your door every day, all day, until you get off of it. And you just in your room and somebody watching you all day. I can just believe they're not there.
Still locked down, Thomas hopes he'll get better treatment in this unit. But deputies will keep watch, just in case he tries to hurt himself again. Inmate Chris Trott insists he wants to play by the rules, but he seems unable to stop himself from collecting contraband.
This is like my bed, all right? Most people have a black wool blanket, but I kind of got this cotton blanket because I've been here so long. It's usually prescribed by medical, but again, I beat the system and got one from somebody that was leaving.
He has a history of harboring more serious contraband, like cigarettes and marijuana. For Trott, the trick is hiding it.
Your pillow's always a good hiding spot because they don't really check your pillow. Inside of your mat, see, I got all these extra sheets too. That's a lot of contraband. You cut your mat open somehow and stuff inside of your mat. And just, I mean, this is a brand new mat, so I don't really want to cut it because then I'll lose all the air out of it. Inside seams of books, you can hide stuff in. Stick your cigarettes in there, or your weed, whatever you got, you can hide in there. In your clothes, you pull this thread out right here, and this whole section opens up. See? And now I can stick, let's say if I had a lighter, I can hide it right there. If I had a little cigarette or a little bag of weed or pills or anything, I can stick it right there. And then a deputy, most deputies don't grab that spot right there because, you know, that's where genitals are at, so they leave you alone. But that's one of the best places to hide everything, is right there.
Trott says he stopped smoking cigarettes and pot. He doesn't want to compromise his case. He could be put away for life if the judge doesn't like what he sees.
I'm facing all this time. If the judge wanted to give me a chance and he looked at my screen and seen that I got caught smoking pot in here, he'd probably be kind of upset about that or weary to give me another chance. So that's kind of why I'm trying to stay on my best behavior now, and I haven't been smoking pot anymore or cigarettes or anything for that matter. I'm just trying to lay low.
But Trott can't bring himself to give up contraband altogether. For Deputy Gray, contraband is a matter of life and death. It represents a constant threat to the deputies, so Gray and the jail are stepping up their shakedowns.
The array of contraband that could be used for weapons is only limited to your imagination or the inmate's imagination. You just don't take a day off of looking for contraband.
Saturday morning, deputies have found contraband in one of the nearby men's pods. It's only tobacco, but if tobacco can get in, so can marijuana, pills, and weapons. Now they're going to go back in force and turn it upside down, Garcia among them.
We're doing a shakedown in 1 Delta. We brought in a canine dog. It's a good show of force.
Everybody out, let's go.
You're on your phone, get up, get some phone.
There's definitely something going on in the pod. This may help us determine exactly what.
To the rec yard, guys, to the rec yard, hey.
All the inmates are first moved into the rec yard. With the help of the search dog, Garcia and the other deputies give the cells a thorough going over.
The dog alerted to the desk, so We want to just kind of tear this cell apart.
The shakedown turns up tobacco, but no other drugs and no weapons.
27 to 31.
The inmates are returned in small groups to their cells.
32, 33.
But even with deputies everywhere, there's a threat coming, right at Garcia. As Garcia brings the remaining prisoners out of the yard, one of the inmates makes a remark about the accused double cop killer in the jail, Dante Morris. The deputies consider it a threat. There might be a direct link to Garcia's earlier death threat, so he'll be taken to a holding cell pending investigation. Garcia and Sergeant Vasallo briefed the intel officer.
Tell him what you just told me.
I'm standing out there. I'm the only one. He waited until I was the only deputy standing there, and he decided to tell the guy that was sitting next to him that he was Dante Morris's.
But he waited until she was in earshot.
He goes, ma'am, I'm not talking to you. I was talking to my friend. And I said, really? I said, if you didn't want me to hear it, you would have never said it.
Garcia checks out the inmate's arrest record.
What's he in jail for?
Trafficking, trespassing on property, obstruction and opposing an officer. At 24.
He made an inappropriate comment in reference to an incident that happened recently in the jail that is probably going to require some further investigation.
The incident reminds Garcia of the risks she and all the deputies are facing every day.
You have to be constantly in control of the situation at hand. So you never let your guard down, ever.
You got your cuffs, Tremley.
You go from 0 to 100 quick.